Gold Star describes a family member who has lost a loved one in the military. Parents, spouses, and children are the most validated in their grief, but siblings are often forgotten. Take a look.
Renee Nickell got a call on December 14, 2011, saying her brother, U.S. Marine Corps Major Samuel Griffith, was killed in combat in Afghanistan. Her world came crashing down. After his death, Renee lost all hope. She struggled for years with PTSD, which nearly wrecked her marriage. She even contemplated suicide. Renee says her faith helped her heal and become a voice for other Gold Star siblings. She shares memories of her brother in her book, Always My Hero.
Please welcome to the 700 Club, Renee Nickell. Renee, it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your book is entitled Always My Hero. Tell us about your relationship with your brother.
My brother, well, he was 2 years older than I, and
So he's the big brother.
he was, yes. And you know, we grew up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and we just always found new adventures to have together. My parents worked all the time, and my mom and my dad were divorced when we were very young, and so we just really bonded with each other.
Yeah.
And you know, we went through hard times, we went through fun times, but we were just very, very close growing up.
Now, often when a sibling is older, we look up to them and see them maybe as bigger than life. You saw Sam as really invincible. I mean, why did you feel that way about him?
Well, you know, he just set his mind to doing great things, and he always accomplished those things. And so I didn't really feel like there was a task that he couldn't take on and that he couldn't do. And so I just gravitated towards him, and you know, I just looked up to him so much.
So on the day that we talked about in that lead-in piece that we showed, the phone call came. Tell me what happened and what you were feeling as you went through that.
Well, that morning, it was December 14th, and I got my kids ready for school, and I was going to go Christmas shopping because I hadn't gone yet. And my phone rang at 7:30 in the morning, and I look at the nightstand, and it was my mom. And I'm thinking, why would my mom be calling me at this early? But, you know, I always love talking to her, so I just picked up the phone. I was like, hi, Mom. And I just heard her crying. And in that moment, I felt like my brother had been injured and that he was coming home in that split second. And so when my mom finally slowed her speech and told me that he had been killed, you know, I just dropped the phone and collapsed. It was earth-shattering.
Why, when that was over, I mean, just trying to process that when the person isn't even there. I mean, it's almost like they've died, but making it real is a challenge in itself. In the process of grief that automatically follows the loss of someone that you love, you felt like as a sibling you were forgotten. Talk about that, because that's what the whole book is about.
Yeah.
And most of us don't think about that.
Right. Well, when I was going through it, I felt that there was not enough support or acknowledgement for the sibling grief. You know, I would go to church, or I would encounter other people, and you know, they take your arm and they look you in the eye and they say, "How are your parents doing?" Yeah. You know, and I was in the midst of the most horrible grief that I had ever endured, and I was like, wait, don't you see me? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when I decided to write this book, I just felt, you know, I have to be a voice for the sibling. You know, it's not like we're trying to outsad each other.
Yes.
You know, and one relationship isn't more important than the other. We're all just trying to make it through.
What was the lowest point for you? When did you realize this is too big for me to solve by myself?
The lowest point was about 4 months after he was killed. You know, I had been training for the Marine Corps 10K. I started college a month after he died. You know, wow. I was just filling my time with things. And then, you know, about 4 months after, I just crashed and burned. And I just got terribly depressed. I was having suicidal thoughts. And my husband stepped in and he said, we have to do something.
What did you do?
Well, I started antidepressants, was one thing. And then I just started a course of therapy. And it was actually several years. I just continued finding that person who helped. And so it was a long series of work.
Along the way, have you met other siblings who have said, yes, I was feeling the same thing that you did?
Well, since the book has come out, I get emailed all the time. Thank you for sharing your story. That's exactly how I felt, or I haven't been able to put my feelings into words, and so that keeps me going. You know, because it's really hard to talk about and continue to talk about, and but those emails and those messages and the friendships that I have now, that, you know, they're like siblings to me now.
You know, it's hard for people when the loss hasn't been theirs to understand the length of time that it takes for someone to work through that kind of loss and grief. And I'm sure that's very frustrating when you're the person who's experienced the loss, when everybody expects life to just get over and for you to get back on the bandwagon.
Correct.
What advice would you give to all of us when we know someone who has lost a loved one in the military? How do we best respond to that?
Well, you know, we just have to approach people with grace. And, you know, there's no timetable for grief. We grieve our whole lives, you know, because that person isn't there. We know that, you know, we'll see them in heaven one day, but the missing them is intense at times. And, you know, I think we just need to love people where they are. We need to just offer a shoulder to cry on, and not necessarily words that will try to fix them. You know, we just need to tell them that we're there for them. And
there really aren't any words to fix in a moment like that. Well, you know, most of us know someone who is serving in the military, and if we do, that means there's always the possibility that they may not come home from their service. Renee's book is called Always My Hero, and the subtitle is The Road to Hope and Healing Following My Brother's Death in Afghanistan. It's a good book for all of us as we live with the family and friends that serve in our military, and able to respond to their families appropriately if needed. Prayerfully not needed, but thank you. A wonderful book.